Well, you're familiar with Melinda Kidder. You know, she finds frequencies sprouting out of people. You're familiar with what she does. These.
I am familiar with a private detective by the name of Miss Kidder, but I strongly advise people not to use her. You're dealing with technology that involves a hidden carrier frequency, and the use of electromagnetic measuring devices would never be able to pick up that stream of energy, that hidden carrier frequency. So it wouldn't matter. You know, anybody with these devices would be able to pick up electromagnetic activity in and around them. That proves nothing. That proves absolutely nothing. Okay, I've seen people hold these devices to their head. You know, these mind control victims that are targeted with this technology, they'll hold these devices to their head to show they're being targeted. It doesn't prove one thing, because we're all surrounded. We're all enveloped by electromagnetic low frequency waves all the time.
Okay.
So, you know, I wouldn't advise, you know, using, you know, a regular scanning device to try to prove this technology is in your body. Now, Dr. Hildegard Staniger out of Los Angeles is able to help you prove the technology is in your body, but it involves toxicology tests, and you would have to do a nanopatch and other tests. And she, the doctor, any reputable toxicologist will be able to show you the nanotechnology in your body. I was on the radio. I did a satellite radio with Dr. Hildegard Staniger. She came on just before I did, on the Pete Santilli show, and that was just before I did the Discovery Channel interview. Anyway, she wasn't on the Discovery Channel interview, but she was on the Pete Santilli show with me. And she does possess the expertise and the ability through a nanopatch and other tests to determine that the nanotechnology is in your body. That is a crucial first step to determine, to prove that, you know, you're being targeted.
Well, there are probably a lot of people, you know, older people, who have chips in their body still, right?
Well, the problem is that, you know, all 318 million Americans are infected with this technology. Again, they've been spraying the nanoparticulates into the hydrosphere for the last 25 years.
Okay.
So every man, woman, and child has the nanotechnology in their body. It's just not activated. Okay, in order to activate that technology, they would have to use what I call directed energy flashing, photons, specifically tuned to the brainwave signature of the mind control victim. That takes time. That's much more complicated. So, you know, going to show that you have nanotechnology in your body, you know, may or may not help you, depending on the fact that, you know, everybody has it. So
yeah.
It's not necessarily going to prove you're targeted with this technology. Yes, you have nanotechnology in your body, but, you know, the courts lack the expertise to adjudicate such cases. And those who do possess the expertise know better than to step forward. They know what will happen to them. Very few are brave enough to come forward and testify against this technology. Duncan is one of the few brave enough to step forward. He helped to develop the mind control technologies for the Department of Defense, and a few others like him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are tests you can take to show the nanotechnology is in your body or the body of your children. Just simply a nanopatch and other tests.
Okay. And Hildegard can do that, a nanopatch, right?
Right. She would conduct a number of different tests. A nanopatch would just be one of them. But even then, it wouldn't be able to show you the different types of nanotechnology in your body and the structures of that nanotech. It would just show that you do possess nanotechnology in your body. But as for the actual structures of nanotechnology, she would not be able to show you.
Mm-hmm. But it's in everybody, since they're spraying it from airplanes high in the sky, in the chemtrails, I presume, and other ways. Now,
chemtrails are just a moniker. That's just a moniker that people use to describe all the various things they're doing up there. But most of what they've been doing is with this nanotechnology, and they've been using, for example, they'll spray chemicals and heavy metal particulates, metal alloy particulates into the hydrosphere, and then they'll irradiate those heavy metal particulates, and that's how weather warfare is created. They cause the scalar waves to overlap each other and ignite, and when the scalar waves ignite, when the scalar waves cross each other, the atoms ignite. But that's way too technical to talk about. I really don't have enough expertise in that area to tell you. Mm-hmm. Again, I was just a security contractor for DoD. But yes, Dr. Hildegard Stanager could help you.
Okay. Now the business it's in everybody, and it's activated, but it's not. Let's say it's inactive, but until it's activated. Did I understand you correctly on that?
Right. Now you're a doctor. You're a medical doctor, a neurologist, right?
Right.
Okay. So you couldn't go to a hospital and just have normal tests and blood work done and them show you the technology in your body. That would not happen.
Right.
You'd have to go and have these special tests done, and nanopatch, etc. What I'm sorry, was your question again?
Well, how do they activate it? Let's say it's in there, and how do they turn it on? How do they?
Okay.
So everybody has the stuff in their bodies, but they're not married to a computer yet. Is that right? Okay. And
the ones who are married to the computer, so to speak, are those who have been selected for training, research, and development of mind control technology.
Okay.
Trauma-based mind control victims, for example, omega programming, beta programming, etc. State-of-the-art mind control. These various programs, those people would be activated. And again, I told you the technology is activated by way of a photon, the directed energy flash. So what happens is the hive mind teams, these teams of 3 to 6 people, you can't have more than 6 in these hive mind teams because it creates too much overlap, too much activity. And it causes confusion, and it's not good to have more than 6. And if you read Dr. Robert Duncan's books, particularly Project Soulcatcher, he talks about this to some degree. But these hive mind teams move close to the victim. This is how it's activated. Okay?
They have to move. They have to be physically close to the victim. Is that correct?
Initially, yes.
How close is close?
They get pretty close. They get, somewhere in the vicinity, probably 100 yards.
That's okay. Well.
And then they obtain remotely a digital copy of your brainwave signature called the digital brainwave imprint. If you were to go to a hospital, for example, and you were to have an EEG scan run, that EEG scan will be able to show you your digital brainwave signature, alpha, beta, delta, beta, etc. Okay, so that's what they do. Is if they're able to do it remotely, okay, after you consume the nanotech, and the nanotech's in your body, and the nanotech travels through your bloodstream and it adheres to the neurotransmitters in your brain. They can begin to tie you to this supercomputer, this conscious computer with a will, intellect, and emotion of its own, by first obtaining your digital brainwave imprint. Then after they have that digital brainwave imprint, they're able to tie you remotely to that computer for life. And that computer begins to target you with streams of electromagnetic wave frequency, this fabricated and falsified stream of energy based upon that pattern, your digital brainwave signature. So nobody on Earth has the same brainwave signature. So your stream of energy, the hidden carrier frequency within that stream, will be different too, depending on the victim.
Now let me ask you to go back. The team has to be close to the person. We're thinking maybe 100 yards. Like that's obviously in the same town, same street. And how does that team collect the EEG signal from the victim, from the target?
Well, you're dealing with pretty sophisticated equipment that I wouldn't have access to. But they're able to do it. Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't require, these accelerants that they're using to map out that digital brainwave signature are already in your body because that's the nanotechnology. Okay.
Okay.
And if you were to go to similar to how a hospital does it, an EEG scan, except they can do it remotely.
Yeah.
They don't need If you were to go to a hospital, they could do the same thing, but they would use a special machine for that, a petascan machine that they would use. I don't know the specific name of it, and it would be able to give you your brainwave pattern. But they're able to obtain that remotely. They don't have to, put a device or use an accelerant to be able to do that. So after they obtain that digital brainwave, they take it and upload it back to their supercomputer. This conscious.
And needless to say, the people who have been married to the computer didn't ask for this, don't know what's happening. And is there any way to get a divorce?
Yes, and first of all, most of the people that are targeting this technology, there are millions actively targeted. Okay, in one form or another, you're talking about, hundreds of programs and probably thousands of projects under this program. One person, I've heard one statistic out there that there were hundreds of thousands of trauma-based victims of this technology in the United States of America alone. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But most of the people that are targeted have no idea they've been targeted. Okay? For example, state-of-the-art mind control. It's based on the ignorance of the victim. So the victim has no idea he's being targeted with this technology, which makes it much more easy to manipulate and deceive the victim for the purposes of this of training, research, and development than it does a person who's trauma-based. Those who are trauma-based, generally have some idea that something is wrong, something is going on because of the pain and the trauma. Though they may not have a basic understanding of how this technology works, they know they're being attacked.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about this trauma-based. Obviously, trauma is trauma, which can be psychological, physical, electronic. I don't know if you put that there, but how are they traumatized?
Well, various ways. The supercomputer that's attacking them, it's actually a computer that's attacking them, locks onto their emotional state. It locks onto whatever causes trauma. And of course, they don't want overlapping testimony from people who are targeted with this technology. So the trauma is different a lot, depending on the individual and their pain threshold. But they use trauma for various reasons. They use trauma to disrupt the continuity of thought of the mind control victim. They need to disrupt your continuity of thought on regular intervals. They use trauma to erase short-term active memory, meaning to clear the neural pathways of the brain. They use trauma for behavior modification. And remember, when you're talking about behavior modification with trauma-based mind control victims, you're talking about behavior modification for death. You're not talking about behavior modification. So they use trauma for various reasons. They use trauma for physical and psychological trauma to map out the sensory and neural pathways of the victim's brain and central nervous system as they begin to build a cognitive model of the victim's brain to achieve direct behavioral control over that person. So trauma is used for various reasons. But that would be some of the main reasons they use trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Pain.
Yeah, pain. Okay.
Basically, it's censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control by way of a pain stimulus. They're just using a pain stimulus.
Now, of course, I'm mind controlled, and you are too, right? Of course.
No.
No? You're not mind control?
No.
Well, how do you know?
I know about this technology because I was involved with, let's just say I was involved in the development of it. I can't really go into detail about that.
But they don't have your head.
No, there are a lot of people that are trying to get the word out that aren't targeted this technology. They're targeted other ways. They're destroyed in other ways.
Well, let's go into that. How are they destroyed in other ways?
Well, for example, they're financially destroyed.
Yeah.
They're emotionally destroyed. They're isolated from family and friends. Their careers are destroyed. Those of us who are targeted with this technology, that's part of. They need to isolate the victim. So what they do is they have they isolate the victim. Also, isolation is very important because they need the mind control victim to internalize or internally focus on the technology for the technology to be effective. So they have to isolate you. They have to isolate you not just from family and friends, but from anyone that could develop into a support network. Okay?
Right.
It introduces variables.
Right. Now, I lost the question.
Okay, listen. Let me just tell you right now that Mossad is listening to this call. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Be careful with the words. Okay.
Of course. Hi, Mossad.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, Yeah, they spoke to me. You know, I've had voice to skull, and the guy had an Israeli accent. I mean, how the hell does that work? Did they train the computer? I don't know. That was.
No. What happens is these are chatterboxes. You're not really going to hear their voice. They're not going to disclose their voice to you. What they're doing is they're using automated special language software called chatterboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know, one moment it may be a woman's voice, the next moment it may be a man's voice, the next moment it may be a child's voice, etc. To give you an example, in 1991, tens of thousands, I don't know if you remember the first Gulf War, but the first Gulf War in 1991 showed on television, CNN showed all these tens of thousands of Iraqi soldiers surrendering with their hands raised and their weapons dismantled.
Yeah.
And a reporter became curious. And so he approached a large number of these soldiers and he said, listen, thousands of these soldiers that surrendered. He approached a large number of them and he said, listen, I know why you surrendered, because you didn't want to get killed. But why did every single one of you dismantle your weapons before you surrendered? And all of them said the same thing, because Allah told us to. Allah said, before we could surrender, we had to dismantle our weapons. Now, it wasn't Allah. It was my former employer, using voice of God weapons, using synthetic telepathy, etc., to convince the Muslim soldiers that the God of their choice was speaking to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're able to induce into the mind voices and images, two-dimensional images, visual and verbal entrainments for this purpose. And of course, the technology works much better on people who have no idea they're being targeted. But even if people who do realize they're being targeted, you know, they need them to become dependent upon the system's output as well. And when I talk about dependent upon the system's output, this remote neural monitoring system, this system of conscious computers, supercomputers, what I mean is remote neural attacks, impulse injections, etc. Okay? And so the system is constantly targeting you with these remote neural attacks and impulse injections in order to manipulate you into an action or access sequence. So they want to be able to obtain direct behavioral control over you, so they manipulate your daily motives and your emotional perceptions. Mm-hmm. And they're using trauma in order to de-pattern your mind so that they can move in and repattern it with these microwaves, with this stream of electromagnetic frequency waves.
Yeah.
A lot of doctors like yourself are targeted. And judges are targeted. FBI agents are targeted. My aunt and uncle live next door to the director of the FBI for the entire state of South Carolina, and they're targeted with this technology. And they live 300 feet next to the director of the FBI for the entire state of South Carolina. And they're breaking into their house. They're vandalizing their property, gaslighting, rearranging furniture, going on all the time.
The FBI is doing that, they think?
No, well, it wouldn't be the FBI, no.
Was somebody working for the FBI? Well, how does the FBI fit into it?
Well, they do. They hide behind law enforcement. I told you.
Yeah.
They have various behind, local, state, and federal organizations that are involved in this. So they use these law enforcement. They hide behind them in order to manipulate the individual without the individual realizing what actually is going on.
Now, could they produce sexual experiences with this?
They could. What they do is they monitor your brain to determine electromagnetic patterns. Everything they're doing is based on pattern recognition. Okay? So what they're doing is they're decoding thought patterns. They're decoding neural signals. So you're tied to that supercomputer, and that supercomputer is decoding everything. It's downloading at the speed of light. Energy travels at the speed of light. Okay, so after they've been able to determine coherent thought patterns with regard to sexual stimulation, they will be able to replicate that sexual stimulation or sexual energy or sexual rage or whatever simply by modulation of the phase, frequency, and amplitude of the stream of energy they're targeting your cerebral cortex with. So, for example, They're watching you. The supercomputer is monitoring your brainwave pattern at all times, and as you're engaging in sexual activity, they're able to determine a coherent set of responses from you. Okay, that's what this technology is all about. It's basically getting the victim to respond. So the supercomputer locks onto the emotional state. It's designed to provoke you constantly into emotional and physical and intellectual responses, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into RNN data. So once they determine a coherent pattern, electromagnetic pattern, brainwave pattern for that brainwave emission for that specific response, whether it's lust, or whether it's anger, or whether it's despair, or depression, etc., anxiety, they no longer have to use situational and conversational scenarios using organized gang stalkers to provoke you into those emotional responses. They can simply target you with that specific frequency, and they can elicit, or I should say solicit, the same emotion from you, the same physical sensation from you.
Now I've wondered if one of the things that they're doing in Guantanamo, because obviously they're not solving any problems of the world, is that they're collecting EEG patterns of various forms of torture and misery, sexual experiences, and they have a library there, fun library we'll call it, and they play it back to people. Is that a possibility, do you think?
Doctor, you said you're a neurologist?
I am. Retired neurologist.
Retired neurologist.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm saying should make sense to you. I'll try to start over here. When I say pattern recognition, to manipulate your daily motives and emotional perceptions, what I mean is that this RNN supercomputer, this conscious computer, with a will, intellect, and emotion of its own, it's automated, active, and adapted to you. So obtaining the brainwave signals of another person wouldn't necessarily help them manipulate another individual using the same pattern, unless they were able to clone that brainwave signature to the brainwave signature of the victim. There would be no way for them to do that. So the system is basically designed to provoke you emotionally, physically, and intellectually, so that it can generate responses from you constantly. It's called response statistics. So this RNN supercomputer is using those response statistics to determine how to interpret and link description with evoked potential, or I should say with data captured about those memory records. Okay? So understand, that's what's going on. Provoking you constantly into emotional responses, which can be remotely measured and integrated back into RNN data. Now, how is it integrated back into RNN data? They're integrating it back into RNN data by interpreting and linking those descriptions with the data that they capture about your memory records. Okay, so it gets kind of technical, it really does, but understand that mind control, trauma-based mind control, is based on your responses. It's based on them being able to provoke you every day into a series of counter moves, trying to function and survive. Because each counter move is an evoked potential. Each counter move is a synaptic response in your brain that the supercomputer can download at the speed of light. And then once they have enough of those responses downloaded at the speed of light, they can begin to determine coherent patterns of thought. You understand?
Well, it's kind of hard to understand because, say I'm a neurologist, but that doesn't mean I know anything about the brain. Why would anyone have told me anything about the brain? All of this stuff, is secret, right? I mean,
the technology is secret, yes, of course. But if you're a neurologist, you would have some understanding of the sensory and neural pathways of the brain.
You have some understanding, but let's say neurology, in practice, is far removed from what's going on.
Well, yeah.
Unless you may know different neurologists than I have encountered, because I've been out of it for a few years. But this is just totally remote from anything I have seen come in way of it.
There are different advances. Listen, let me make it real simple.
Okay.
They have weaponized neuroscience.
Right.
Okay, what is neuroscience? Neuroscience is essentially the study of the human brain and central nervous system. So they've weaponized that. Neuroscience is no longer just a field of medicine. It has crossed the threshold of medical science and is now a chief weapons platform used by all the intelligence, the major intelligence agencies of the world, the CIA, the GCHQ out of Great Britain, the Europeans, the Russians, the Chinese. They're all using this to some extent, though no one's quite as hard-headed as the Americans. So yes, I mean you're dealing with advances in various fields, but so neurology is coming along the way. I don't know much about it, but you're talking about chemistry and engineering, and cellular, molecular, structural, functional, evolutionary development of the human mind, central nervous system. So that's a big field.
It is. What I'm saying is clinical neurology is what I'm talking about. If you're just a clinical neurologist seeing patients, it's far removed from this.
You really want to break down what's happening to you, okay?
Yeah.
It's three things. It's censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control.
Okay.
Censorship, memory, that's everything they're doing to you.
Okay.
Every single thing they're doing to you. Okay? Censorship meaning they need to restrict you at will, to restrict you from engaging in activities which interfere with the program. And they have to do that with all mind control victims, because engaging in outdoor activities and listening to music and reading books, etc., this interferes with their neural programming. This interferes with their remote neural monitoring, remote neural manipulation system, okay? Their brain-to-computer interface. It interferes with that signal. So they need to censor your ability to do that. And they use trauma and pain to do that, to censor the victim's ability to engage in activities which interfere with their neural programming. It's called censorship. Mm-hmm. So they'll use pain or trauma, or they'll use remote neural attacks, drowsiness, dizziness, etc. Okay?
Yeah.
It's called censorship. And the second area of mind control is called memory management. What they're doing to you, everything they're doing to you can be summed up in that. Memory management. They're using your own memories against you. They're using the real own memories and falsified memories. They're called fabricated and falsified memories. That's why I call it earlier fabricated and falsified stream of energy. The stream of energy contains data. Okay, the supercomputer was able to capture your memory references, these previous choice references, your previous memories, and during the silent monitoring period, and it was able to download those memories at the speed of light. And now the supercomputer is injecting those previous memories back into your memory and thought process at regular intervals in order to fit you into some type of action or access sequence. It's called memory management. So they're using your own real memories against you. And again, falsified memories that they were able to plant using the neural program. So a woman would start having, memory of being raped as a child by her father. And people would walk up to that woman and say, that never happened. And she would swear that it did. Those are falsified memories. And then fabricated memories are your own memories. So something you had 20 years ago or something, you start thinking about it again. The supercomputer captures that at the speed of light by way of this bidirectional stream of energy. Okay, called the information and injection feedback loop. The supercomputer captures that memory that you thought of at the speed of light and downloads it into its system, and then it injects the memory over and over, repeatedly, looping pattern, every 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, in order to manipulate you, to deceive and manipulate you, so that you will believe that memory, the response that you're having towards that memory is your own.
So it's like they're doing away with reality. They're installing their reality, right? This is what it comes down to.
They can't do that. They can't alter a person's sense of what is real.
Yeah.
Simply because the person can't tell what's real and what's false. But you could tell their memory attacks simply by looking at the patterns. Yeah. Everything they're doing is based on patterns. From the code mind control, from decoding thought patterns, that's mind control, all the way to organized thought, choice reference patterns. Okay. Organized stalking is based on one thing only: choice, reference, patterns. Previous patterns of previous choices of the mind control victim. That's how they're stalking you. So they're basing that organized stalking off your choice, reference, patterns. Okay, in order to understand organized stalking, for example, I'm just using organized stalking as an example. Okay? You need to go back and look at a pattern of your previous choices. Your favorite restaurants, your favorite bars, your stores, etc.
Yeah.
That's how they're stalking you based on those previous choice records. Okay? So it's all based on pattern recognition. They need to make sense of what they see on their screen. If they can't make sense of if the hive mind teams can't make sense of what they see on their screen, then they have to revert back to your past activity in order to try and determine, predict and influence, your reference choices and thought composition. That's what this technology is about. That's memory management right there in a nutshell. You want to understand memory management. That's it. That one sentence. Predict and influence your choices. We call them reference choices. Okay, during thought composition. When I say thought composition, I mean as you're formulating your thoughts and you're preparing to act. The supercomputer will inject its speed of light with using blocking and injection methods. It will block your memory references, and it will inject what is falsified and fabricated memory to try to pitch you into some type of action or access sequence.
Okay. Well, okay. This is really interesting, and I certainly appreciate it. I'll call you soon about setting up something else, and I want to get a divorce from the computer if I can. I don't know. Can I say to the computer, I divorce thee, I divorce thee, I divorce thee? Does that work?
No, you can't. But there are places where you can flee in the world where it gets a lot better.
Where are those? People were going to... Ecuador.
For example. Yeah,
Okay.
These leftist governments in South America, where the Europeans and the Americans are treated with suspicion. So in order for their technology to work properly, they have to constantly keep provoking you.
Okay.
Every chance that they get. Am I keeping you up? I'm sorry, I brought back into a room.
Okay.
Okay. So but anyway, so if they can't provoke you, then their technology doesn't work properly. Okay.
Oh yeah.
If you move to Ecuador and you tell the Ecuadorians what's going on, the Ecuadorians whether they think you're crazy or not, they're gonna start watching you. And that means that the Americans and Europeans have to be more careful, and that translates into a much better life for the victim.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just left Ecuador. They're targeted individuals in Ecuador. Everything is stopped for them except the directed energy.
Yeah, I've talked to Richard Sauter in Ecuador. Wow. Okay, well,
That's Ecuador, Bolivia, Cuba. These leftist governments, you'll find that life will dramatically improve for you.
okay, Bolivia. I mean, there are people. I'm not about to move, but I know some who do.
Well, I know a lady who did, and she verified the same thing. I mean, before I ever got to Ecuador, she told me about that. When I got to Ecuador, it was true. I was able to determine that it all stopped except the directed energy effect.
Okay.
But Cuba is the same way. So is Bolivia. They're not going to help you. They're not going to hurt you.
Right. Well, okay. I thank you so much. I think this was most interesting, and I will we'll be in contact again. Thank you, Bryan, too. Okay. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.